And good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Forward Maryland. Today is Thursday, July 9th, and you are watching or listening to Forward Maryland. My name is Bill Woodcock.
And I'm Jason Booms.
Jason, welcome back. You were a little bit under the weather the other day. How are you this fine evening?
Thank you. I was actually running a little bit on empty. Still am to some degree, but trying to make a comeback. Had enough time, if I may engage in some shameless self-promotion. I did have time to write, cool. I did have time to write an article for Spartan Considerations, my public affairs blog, where I was able to comment on some recent goings on with our lovely, lovely county council. So I'm back, much to the chagrin of some, I'm sure. And there'll be also some other changes coming to the Spartan Considerations website very soon.
Oh, excellent. It's always awesome to see the world of Spartan considerations. What is an consideration? Spartan considerations expanding. Perhaps I was a little bit distracted by what looks like a Borg implant on either side of your head.
Yes, I'm 12 of 9, just sitting in for Jason Booms today.
At least you're not 4th of 6. We know about that guy. So all mirth aside, or lame attempts at same, we are very honored to have a terrific guest this evening. It's a very impressive person who is running for the congressional seat in District 7 as an independent candidate, which is not an easy thing to do here in the state of Maryland. Her name is Amber Ivey. Amber, welcome to the podcast this evening.
Hello, thank you guys for having me. I'm super excited to be here tonight.
Our pleasure. So, Jason, you were the one who keyed me on to the awesomeness of Amber. So, I'm gonna turn the floor over to you.
Cool, thanks, Bill. Hello again, Amber.
Hi, Jason.
Hi, I'd like to ask you the question that Roger Mudd famously asked Teddy Kennedy in August of 1979. A little bit different, but why do you want to be a member of Congress?
So I believe that we are in a state in this country where there's a lot of division. Not that I believe, we are in a state in this country that there is a lot of division. And because of my background working with both Democrats and Republicans, I find that this division is not necessarily a real division when you actually get on the ground and work with people in localities and states. But it seems like Congress has gotten a little bit more close to reality TV or pandering and things like that in order to get votes. And I'm concerned that we're pushing the country in the wrong direction when we're thinking about arguing or we're fighting or trying to use talking points or buzzwords to get folks to make decisions when in reality, this country was built in a way where we're supposed to work together and have that healthy conflict for us to keep things moving forward. So for me, seeing what's happening in Washington, as well as the seat opening up, it made me really say, I need to stand up and stand out now, and I can't afford to wait 2, 4, 6, 10 years from now to run for office when we're in a very divisive time with COVID happening, all the things that are going on with the different protests and all these things that are even fueling that fire even more. We need leaders who are going to go into office and actually work together and find common ground and get things done in Washington and not just fight about it.
And well, you mentioned your background very briefly. Can you expand on that and tell us sort of who you are, where you're coming from, and some of your life experiences?
Oh, for sure. So the beginning of who I am started actually in Bethesda, Maryland. That's where I was born. My parents were both in the military at the time. My dad did 20 years in the Army, and my mom was in the Navy when they met. So what that meant for me was that every 2 to 3 years of my life, I was moving around to a different duty station. I lived as far west as Arizona and as far east across the pond as Germany. So because of that, I had to learn very quickly how to adapt to a new culture and adapt to new environments, make new friends, build new relationships, because I had a short amount of time, right? You're 2.5, 3 years, you're moving on to the next place. So a lot of that framed me as an individual and as a person. So when I started working and my first career coming out of college was a logistics manager. I'm an operations person. I'm all about show me the data, what's the fastest way to get things done while ensuring that we're thinking about the people and making sure the people have what they need, but let's make sure we get things done. And I realized that that was a skill that was needed in government. So I actually moved to Baltimore for the first time in 2012 to go to University of Maryland College Park to get my degree in master's in public administration. And my whole goal was to make government work better for the people. And I did my first job while I was actually still in my master's program. I got hired to work with Governor O'Malley's state stat program. Once Governor O'Malley was done with his term, I was actually kept on by the Hogan administration to help to retool that program into something called the Governor's Office of Performance Improvement. So that has always been my thing, like looking at data, figuring out how we can make things better. And then I was recruited by a think tank, Pew Charitable Trust, where I did some research on data as well as helping folks implement technology and tools in government, and specifically in the judicial branch. And while I was there, I was able to travel around the country and work with different localities and states to try to show them how to implement technology in a way that was ethical and the way that actually improved access for individuals who are often left behind in some of the systems. And I was able to see a lot of things that were happening, like the amount of things that were going to be automated, how jobs were going to be changing, how people data were being used in different technology platforms. Like all these different things were being shown to me, which made me even more concerned with what we're arguing about now in Congress, and the things that we're not focusing on are some of these things that are going to be approaching our very soon and near future.
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm here running for office.
Well, I was going to say, one of the things I noticed, I checked out your website, and there'll definitely be opportunities to mention the website specifically very soon, the specific address, but I was checking out your merch, and I thought some of your apparel was very futuristic. It had this, that I don't want to say cyberpunk look. That was probably 10 years ago, but it definitely did. I mean, but obviously with your name, Amber Ivey AI, it does lend itself very well towards that sort of look ahead. Can you talk to us a little bit more, maybe about some specific ideas you might have as far as utilizing technology to advance the public interest?
Yes. So if you've seen any of my ads at this point, I talk a lot about how the job industry or the future of work is changing or will change due to technology. Let me actually back up a little bit. So for those, let me make it a little bit more, less wonky, right? So with COVID-19, the jobs and positions and businesses that were successful were either essential or had a technology play. What I mean by a technology play, you were able to work from home, or that business had some type of technology tool that allowed them to access their customers and reach out to people, whether that was Uber Eats, whether that was Amazon, whether any of those places. Those who had brick and mortar or businesses that were not able to access technology or use technology in a way that could connect to customers are struggling now, and we're seeing a lot of these companies go bankrupt. Now, in the future, that's only going to get worse because the amount of jobs and skills that are going to be removed due to technology and automation is a big number. For example, in our district alone, or the Baltimore-Columbia-Townsend metropolitan area, that number is up to 43% of skills or jobs will be automated by technology as early as 2030. So because of that, we have to think about how do we re-engineer education where it's actually cradle to the grave education? Because if we know technology, things like artificial intelligence, quantum computing, and all these other tech words are going to change how we do business and change industries. How are we training people to make sure they're getting the training they need throughout their whole lifetime? Like, gone are the days where you can just go graduate school and expect to have the skills you need to continue to compete. Think about the Ubers of the world. Uber almost took out the taxi industry. Folks were able to rebound very quickly, but it almost did. Amazon has put a lot of companies out of business, and these are all technology companies. And Amazon is not a shipping company. Amazon at its core is actually a technology company that has all these different platforms that most of us don't know about or think about, that actually they run their company as a tech company. It's not just a shipping company. So if we know all these things are moving that way, we need to make sure, like I said, we re-engineer how we do education and training in this country by incentivizing both businesses as well as individuals to get the skills and training they need. We need to make sure that apprenticeships, internships, and things like that exist for young people at an earlier age, right? Like in high school, kids should be already interacting and finding out about the different skills and things they like. Gone are the days where you can wait till college to figure out what you're gonna do with your life. Like, Gone are the days where you can go into school undecided and not knowing what you're doing, because the system is moving so rapidly. It's not going to work out for people who are waiting that long to figure out. So we need to make sure our kids and youth have access to those things, as well as those who are older having access to apprenticeships and things like that. We need to also pilot programs to figure out how do we actually attach healthcare and benefits to an individual and not a job. With COVID, a lot of people lost their jobs. That means they lost their benefits. That's healthcare, dental, some places childcare reimbursement, like all these different things were lost because they lost their job. Doesn't mean they don't need those things, but we need to look at ways and pilot ways to see what works when we actually put individuals attached to those benefits and not attaching those to jobs. So those are just a few of the things that I've been thinking about. I can go on, but I don't want to keep running on too long.
Oh, it's fine. Actually, I think Bill might have a question for you.
Okay.
There is some. I know how now I know how this feels like. This is awesome. But Amber, I have to tell you, I loved every second of the answer to that last question that Jason posed. You know, knowing what I know of the 7th district, I personally am a resident of the 3rd, but the 7th is about 200 yards that way. You know, much better than anything I've heard out of Ms. Klasick. Certainly much more forward thinking than anything I've heard out of Congressman Mfume. You know, I was supportive of a gentleman named Alec Ross who ran for governor last time out. And I was very intrigued by the candidacy of Mary Miller, who ran for mayor this year. You know, like how I perceive you, very technology, futuristic, you know, forward thinking, very oriented towards the way the world can be. And I love the world of possibility. That seems to be a message that doesn't exactly resonate with an electorate who's bouncing between stupid Trump tweets, you know, 60,000 cases of coronavirus a day, some horrific thing that's happened in the world of equality. How are you finding it, especially, and I'm going to ask my next question about your challenges in getting on the ballot. How are you finding it in terms of talking about what you're envisioning and bringing it down to an individual and community level?
Great question. So on the website, that doesn't work as well. When I'm in person and out, like I've been out the last few weekends, and then coming up, I'll be out during the whole week. But when I'm talking to folks, when I just say I'm focused on the future of families, the future of work, and future of communities, folks get that. And then I can go into a little bit more detail. That means having healthcare access, making sure you have the skills you need to compete in your job, and then making sure your community has the infrastructure you need to get to a job or get access, whether that's physical infrastructure, like train, bus, plane, or what have you, or technology infrastructure, broadband, 5G, and all these things. So I try to drill it down in that way, and most people understand that message because most people want their family to be okay. Most people want their work to be okay, and most people want their community to be okay. So for me, it's really drilling down to, we have to look at the future of those 3 things. The 10 bullets under each don't matter when I'm, of course, out there talking to folks very quickly because I can't get through all those, but I can distill the message in that way.
Did you really hear that plane fly overhead when you answered that last question?
I didn't. Or maybe I did and my subconscious picked it up.
Because you said plane.
Because I normally never say plane. So I'm like, why did I say plane?
Yeah, by the way, a lot of Howard County being on a flight path is a thing out here. Maybe it's something you want to be aware of. Sounds like you are. So for the listeners and viewers, tell us about how it works to be an independent candidate, to get on the ballot, because you are looking to have a spot on the ballot, not be a write-in candidate or anything like that. And tell us how that's going so far.
So one thing that's so interesting to me is figuring out this political system outside of the 2 major parties, right? 2 major parties is pretty clear what they do. They go in primary here in the state of Maryland. Depending where you are, that could be different. They primary here in the state, pay a fee, and that's how we determine who's going to be on the ballot. For third-party candidates, if you're not doing write-in, you have to petition to be on the ballot and get signatures. Those signatures do not mean that you're agreeing to vote for an individual. It does not change your party or anything like that. It just says you want this other person on the ballot. So right now we have to collect 5,064 signatures. However, we did file a lawsuit against the state of Maryland this week, hoping to get the relief that was provided to the Green Party and the Libertarian Party, which is the 50% reduction due to the state putting in the stay-at-home orders and things like that that prevented us to get out until June. So we're trying to do that right now. But as far as the differences, it's very interesting to me how different it is. I wish in a future state that other candidates could also have their own version of a primary. In the state, your party has to actually be registered within the state. We only have 3. It's Democrats, Republicans, and then the Bread and I forgot the
Bread and Roses, yeah.
Yeah, the
Bread and
other
Roses,
party. Yeah. And that's it. And then everyone else has to petition, which is fine. I don't mind doing that. But it is interesting how it's different depending on your party, and that we don't have open primaries here. So that's concerning for most people who are independents because you don't get to vote in a primary. I understand why here, but I come from states that had open primaries and those tend to still work. So
Right.
I've learned a lot. It's been fun during COVID. I will say I think we reached more people via technology than we would have ever been able to touch via on the ground. Like I couldn't have hit over 200,000 people knocking on doors. That's just not something I personally could have done. But our campaign has been able to hit those numbers due to technology and making sure that we were pushing technology in a way that I think other folks also have had to consider while being in the home.
Right. And I am one who is strongly in favor of more ballot access, both for parties and more primaries and leveling the playing field between incumbents and challengers. So I'm right with you. I think, the political system here could use a healthy dose of competition. So the other question I'm going to ask, and then I see my co-host is chomping at the bit, as is his one. I'm looking. I remember a statistic. I think I saw it today on your very own website that said 74% of people have a negative opinion of Congress.
Yes.
And here you are running for Congress. You're doing a lot of great stuff. You're certainly making a difference in your professional life. So, you're doing something that's creating a very, there's a high barrier to entry.
Yep.
So why are you doing this?
It's kind of what I said earlier. I feel like we're in a very sensitive state in this country. And it's not just because of what's happening in Washington, but what's happening nationally and now globally, right? There's a movement where there's movements running at the same time where a lot of people feel government is not working for them. And I think because of that, we need people who can show them government can work for you. This democracy can work. This great experiment called America has been working, and we can make it continue to work. Like, I love my country. I want to be in this country, and I don't want to sacrifice democracy because of the fighting that we have at the top. And yes, Congress does have a very low approval rating, and it's had that for some time now. And that should be a better reason for us to get in there, fix it, and get it done. One thing about me is one of my ministers from college used to say, Amber could get gorillas in Hawaii. Gorillas aren't in Hawaii, but he's like, you'll figure out how to get it there. And I've often in my career gone into places, specifically when I was in logistics, I was put into places that were very, very underperforming, had red scores, like on a red, yellow, green metric, green being good, red being horrible. I was put in places where I had to go in there and change and make improvements. And I did that. So when I look at Congress, I'm like, we can fix this. We are not that far gone where this is something where we just say, oh, it's done. We're just going to keep with the business as usual. No, I'm interested in politics, unusual. I'm used to business, unusual. I'm looking at how we can actually improve this thing because I love my country. Most of my family has been in the military or has served, whether it's my aunts, uncles, what have you. So we've served our country. Being here has been a beautiful place to be. Like, we have our issues and things like that, but we need to make sure we focus on the areas where we actually share in common to get some of these things done and stop the back and forth bickering and fighting. And I'll say one last thing to your question. Sure. I feel it's wrong that we tell kids to not bully, not fight, but then our examples right now are exactly that. And we have to do a better job for the next generation because they're going to be in this this country. They're going to be the ones that shape it, the ones we pass the torch to. And I want to leave them something worthy of passing the torch to.
I hear many great things there, all of them patriotic, and more than a few tinged with maybe a little exasperation on our current system, and I think that's wonderful. I thank you for that, Jason.
Yeah,
Back to you, sir.
Yeah, Ms. Ivey, I do have a question for you because obviously this show really appeals to a lot of media and policy attentive people, a lot of hard-bitten political consultants and office holders.
Okay.
So thinking about that, I know the question they would want me to ask is,
ask them,
how are you going to win? What's
how am I going to
your
win?
strategy for winning? Yes.
So first I need to get on the ballot, which I think is realistic and we'll be able to do that. The how I'm going to win piece, I don't think it's as hard as people think it is. So when we're looking at the current state, right? So I would need 36%. I think you and I kind of talked about this on a phone call before. I would need 36% of the vote. One, the moment I get on the ballot, I'm registering the whole state to vote. No, but honestly, really getting that population that has felt disenfranchised and aren't registered to vote. We've seen other representatives do this, right? We've seen AOC do this, where she literally increased the number of folks who were voting. That's part of it. I also feel like there's a group of folks who feel like they've been left behind, some in the city and many are in the counties, right? Often when we talk about MD7, no one knows that it includes Baltimore County or Howard County. Now, when I say no one, I don't mean absolutely no one, but it's not talked about in a way that encompasses those other two areas. And I know even as we're doing like text message or phone calls, people are like, no one's ever even called me before. And so I think it's important to reach out to the folks who've often been left behind. And that's part of my goal, is to hit those folks who are not registered and get them registered to vote before November, as well as to hit the folks who have felt left behind, whether it's in the city or in the counties, to let them know that I am here to work for them. If not, they can fire me and I'm okay with that. Like, if you're not doing your job, you should be fired. And we need to do a better job of firing people who are in elected office, which I think we have a long way to go with that. But I believe that we should make sure that we hold people accountable to what they say. And if I'm not doing what I said I was going to do, or what I plan to do, then do not reelect me, of course, and do not put me back in there. But the same old is not working for this district. Part of my commercial even says the statistics were better in the year I was born than today, and that's a problem. Poverty was lower back then. Unemployment rates were lower. Granted, that takes in consideration COVID, which spiked unemployment in our district. But those things shouldn't be. Like, you shouldn't be able to look back 30 plus years and say it was better then than now, with all the advances in technology we have, all the things that are in our favor, right? That shouldn't be. And we're out of a recession, other people are thriving and what have you. So we should be doing way better than we are.
Mm-hmm. To that end, one good way of gaining some visibility is obviously being able to participate in debates. Assuming, of course, that you get on the ballot, how many debates will you be pushing for the fall?
So hopefully, I don't know how it works with Maryland when it comes to independent candidates, but my goal is to push and challenge both Klacik and Representative Mfume to debates, because I think people need to hear what all of us have to say. It's not like, for example, not speaking against either one of them, but neither of them have put out commercials. They haven't put out any ads or things like that. Some of it, like Mfume doesn't really have to, right? Because he has the name recognition and he's been here. Klacik, of course, I know she's had concerns with funding for her campaign. I've seen her on TV a few times, but nothing that's saying this is like no commercials targeted towards the district and things like that. So what I plan to do is push for those debates so that everyone can hear everyone on that panel. And whoever you choose then is out of a place of you actually have the knowledge and education on each candidate versus this candidate, you know their name, this candidate you may see on Fox News, and this candidate is trying to push commercials and other things to get her voice heard, but why not let's all sit on the same stage and have the answer the same questions and see where that goes.
And I do have one more question as far as just thinking about the electorate. Now, I've heard speculation that we could see a voter turnout model of, upper 80s, perhaps even 90%, given the historic interest in this election, particularly at the top of the ticket. But obviously there are some down ballot races of great interest. So out of that, and we've seen already a primary on the Republican side that was, I would say, rather sharply contested. Kasich was not the overwhelming winner of either primary that she faced. Congressman Mfume, he obviously did better on the second primary rather than the first one, which is still, again, very, very hotly contested. Do you see your candidacy as a vehicle, perhaps for disaffected Democrats or Republicans who may not be thrilled with their particular nominee?
I actually do, and I'm hearing that as I'm, again, doing phone calls or text messages and things like that, or even when I go to the farmer's market and stand outside, people are like, oh, thank goodness there's a third option, because they felt like, and I'm not speaking against either one of those individuals, but they felt like their voice wasn't heard in the current ballot. And I understand that. I get that. That makes sense. So for me, it's really showing people that I am for the future. I am for making sure that we're dealing with these issues that are at our door right now and that are going to affect the family, that are going to affect our economy. And I hope that people get that and hear that when they hear me speak, whether it's out in person or through some type of social media engagement or what have you. I hope that folks understand that I am here to hopefully give them another option. And I also think, even like, say, for example, none of this works out, we need more than two parties on a ballot. Like, there's not two candidate system. It just isn't working for us. Like, another stat is that most of us are independent in this country. Over Democrats and Republicans, most individuals identify as independent, not necessarily registered as independent, but identify that way. So if we know the majority identifies as an independent, then why are we still okay with this current two-party system that often leaves us all wondering who to choose? We're dealing with that at the top of the ballot as well, right? People are very concerned with how this is going to work out because they feel like they have two options that they don't necessarily agree with. And for that reason, I think we have to think about how we do elections very differently in this country.
So I entirely agree with your premise, because, or at least the premise that I hear, which is that in a political structure, I mean, you cannot run the political world in this country like you can a commercial marketplace. You have the red brand, which is completely over to the right end of whatever continuum. And then that normally would create an opportunity for the competitor. But yet the blue brand seems also to be all the way over on the end of the spectrum. How do you bridge that gap? How do you give people the permission to respect the franchise of their vote? And how do you do that outreach to them, especially as I had mentioned in the, before we came on, so many people in the 7th district are used to voting one way because it's just always what we've done. What's your plan to get out there and let them know, besides just the lady at the farmer's market, that lady, I'm sure, it speaks for at least 100 people that, who would not have, who probably walked by you that day, who didn't know who you were, who didn't say anything. How do you bring up that awareness and that, and to follow up on Jason's question, convince them that you can do this?
So that's a very good question. I'm gonna answer it two-part answer. So the first part is, anytime I've been sent to go into like for my job, anytime I was sent to go into a different district or what have you, whether it was a Republican or Democratic district, I always encountered the same problems. There were certain things that the right believe and certain things the left believe. But at the end of the day, I was trying to get them all to one common place. So I had to identify very quickly, what do we all have in common? We all have at least one thing in common. No matter where you come from, where you live on this planet, you have at least one thing in common. So what I've gotten very good at is when I speak to folks or when I'm encountering folks, I find out what matters to them and then find the one thing we have in common. I build from there. And then that creates the relationship I need to be able to have the tougher conversations, right? Like, I can go in very red Texas, which I have done, with my black skin and curly hair and get a judge who rides a Harley and who is very right-leaning to listen to me and want to hear from me, because I've learned how to operate in a way that focuses on the person first, building that relationship, and then moving forward. But what I plan to do as it relates to folks here, I do plan on, once we're opening up even more, getting out there, doing events, whether it's things with volunteering with folks. This was all the plan before COVID, so I'll tell you what my plan is. Well, now we're opening back up. Getting out there doing community events. Volunteering is part of something that really matters to me. I've been volunteering for forever with different organizations, and bringing that service part to the community and to my campaign once we're open to the point we can do all those things and have mass gatherings. But people have to see that you're willing to work and that you're willing to get out there and that you care about them. When I talk to folks, I am a person who genuinely cares about people in Baltimore City. I remember first moving here in 2012, and that was election year, and seeing straight down the median on MLK, vote Democrat. And it hurt my heart that all it said was vote Democrat. They didn't give any reason for to vote Democrat. And I think that is pandering. I think that it acknowledges what you said. People know that African Americans, for the most part, are going to vote Democrat. But what we have to do, and what I plan to do, is also educate people there's another option. It doesn't have to be Republican, right? Because right now that's the other option. They don't realize that there is a middle candidate or another candidate that you can put on the ballot and vote for. And that's very important for me to do that, whether it's through speaking through platforms like yours or some of the other platforms that I'm speaking on. It's really educating people that we have an opportunity to do something different. I think when folks have that information, they can make the best decision for them. If after seeing that I am here and independent is an option and they decide not to do that, that's fine. But at least you have the education you need. You've interacted with me and know how I stand for things and what I stand for. And you know that I'm a person who actually cares, and my passion normally comes through. So for me, it's doing those volunteer events, continuing to reach out to folks, continuing to call people, continuing to leave voicemails if you don't answer, continue to let folks know that I'm here, I care, and we care about folks. And we've been doing even like wellness checks on folks to say, hey, are you okay during this time? And being able to assist where we could. So things like that, I think, just show that you care. And I think most people want to feel like they are cared about and that they're not just voting for another name on the ballot.
So I hate to bring this information to you, but there is a famous Maryland political operative named Larry Gibson, who was the creator of the Vote for the Democrats signs. And he posted something recently on Facebook that said that this year will mark the 40th anniversary of those signs. So it's just gorgeous. It's just really gorgeous.
Oh, it stresses me out.
My last question, because I know we just hit the half-hour mark, and I know we got some other business to tend to with you, is, where do you see yourself? I mean, to answer the elevator pitch or cocktail party question, socially liberal, fiscally conservative, economically moderate, I mean, just, for obviously, a lot of people are learning about you here. Where would you put yourself on that continuum in different areas?
Yep. So you actually hit it almost nail on the head. So I'm fiscally conservative. Like, that's who I am, and I'm conservative also fiscally in my own life. So that's just part of my being, is being very fiscally conservative. I think that we need government in places that we need government, but we need to hold government accountable to the money that they're spending and that they're using it on programs that actually work, not programs that have evidence that show they do not work just to keep funding something. I honestly think evaluation should be attached to most of the programs we administer, period, to see if it's working, so we're not wasting money in ways where people who care about their taxpayer dollars, right, and how they're being administered, that we're actually doing the right things for those folks. So that's one side. As far as socially, I lean more liberal socially. As a Black woman, there are things that I have seen either personally or through folks that I know, where I know there are systematic things in place that do cause roadblocks. And I'm interested in making sure we remove those roadblocks so people can run and have their fullest potential and live out the American dream. As it relates to the economy, same thing. I'm very interested in folks being able to go out there and innovate and challenge the system to do better. And I love the idea of things like benefit corporations, where there's a capitalist motive, but it also focuses on benefiting the people and things like that. But I do think the current model that is here, that there are some things that can change, but for the most part, if folks have the right heart and are focused, we can continue to employ people and do the right thing for the community as well as our environment and things like that as well.
Could have used you in the 90s. I'm telling you.
At the tender age of fill in the blank.
Jason Effendi, your turn.
Yeah, actually, I just have one question.
Okay.
If people wanted to learn more about your candidacy, wanted to potentially help with your campaign, where should they go?
You can go to my website. That's ivey2020.com, ivey2020.com. And we have everything listed there if you want to volunteer. We still, of course, need volunteers to get signatures for us to get on the ballot. That's always needed. Or if you want to phone bank with us, you can do that. You can text people. Like, there's plenty of ways to participate. And also, if you Google my name in general, you can see some of my old videos or what have you that kind of talk more about my platform and what matters to me as it relates to coming in and helping this district to move forward.
Okay. Well, as a District 7 resident, I definitely appreciate that.
No problem. Thank you, Jason.
So just ask off the cuff. I mean, I mentioned I dropped Larry Gibson's name before. Are you any relation to the Prince George's County Ivies who are active in politics?
Everyone asks me that all the time. I don't even know. So from like immediate family, no. But they are from, because I've done the research, because when I worked for Governor Hogan, the lieutenant governor's assistant asked me that question. I was like, I have no idea. And I started researching. They're from Rocky Mount, North Carolina. My family's from a place called Roanoke Rapids, North Carolina. It's about an hour away. So I imagine if we traced our ancestry, or if they just fill out 23andMe, because I am on there, we would be able to see if there's a connection somewhere. But immediate connection that I know of, no.
Excellent.
But I guess the Ivy name tends to end up in politics. So yeah.
It is. That's a good thing. So yeah, I guess my last question, and I'm loath to steal this from my esteemed co-host, but I spoke before of elevator pitch, and so given 30 seconds, we're in an elevator, wherever. Elevators can be anywhere that has more than one floor.
Mm-hmm.
How would you answer the great musical question, what's your deal?
What's my deal? Yep, I got you. So my name is Amber Ivey, and I'm here to ensure that we are focused on the future of families, the future of work, and the future of communities. Because what's happening in our system right now is the equivalent of us going from the candlestick to electricity. And if we do not operate in a way that allows us to walk forward into the future, we're going to leave people behind. So this is a great movement that's happening. I believe that I'm the candidate that's the right person for this job. I've done work with Democrats and Republicans across the country, and I'm here to make sure that Maryland District 7 is no longer left isolated and left behind.
Amber, that is terrific. Thank you so much for your willingness.
Thank you guys. This has been great.
And run for this. We hope that you've enjoyed this. We hope that you would consider coming on again after you get those 5,100.
We're hoping that it's cut in half. We'll hopefully find out this week. But yes,
you may as well still get 5,100.
There you go. You have to. Yeah, you have to double it basically.
The pinheads you'll have, who sign up. So this is terrific. Jason, any final thoughts?
Oh gosh, no, none.
Well, we will be with you out there in listener and/or viewer land next week. Jason and I will come at you at a date TBD with the latest in the Democratic stakes, unless, of course, something else terrifically horrible happens anywhere, in which case all bets are off. So for Jason Booms, my name is Bill Woodcock, and you have been watching or listening to Forward Maryland. Have a great day, everybody. Take care.